Now, tonight, we're wrapping up our series, The Good Life. And over the last few weeks, we've been walking through the book of Philippians, and the stool is moving, and I don't want it to move. There we go. We have been walking through the book of Philippians over the last couple of weeks, and I got to admit, this series has really been one of my favorite series we've ever done. Like, I just have really been challenged by it, and I think it has been really good for me personally. I hope that you also have been challenged by it and been getting something out of it as we've been walking through this book. If you missed any of the first 3 weeks, you can catch up. You can go check them out on our YouTube page. Just search for 242 College Ministry and check those out. But here's an overview kind of where we've been. Philippians is a letter written by this guy named Paul, right? And he's actually sitting in prison as he writes this letter to his friends. Now, he's in prison because he's been telling people about Jesus. But while he's sitting there, maybe he's trying to pass some time. We're not really sure exactly what's going on every moment of Paul's life when he writes this letter. But he's sitting there and he begins to write this letter to his friends, which I think is so cool. It's friends that know Paul, they know he's in jail, and they live in Philippi, which is why it's called Philippians, because he's writing to the Philippians. It's pretty straightforward. It's not like some big secret, right? So that's why it's called Philippians. But throughout this letter, Paul's painting this picture. This is why we chose this book. This is why we called it The Good Life, because Paul is painting a picture for us of what the good life looks like. What does it look like for you? What does it look like for me? Is it something we can experience today? Is it something we have to earn? Is it something we have to manufacture? Is it something that we have to create for ourselves? Like, what is the good life, the life that God has designed for you and me? And Paul starts talking very specifically about both what it is and what it isn't. And so in chapter 1, week 1, we looked at Paul telling us, hey, the good life is not about anything external. It's not about what you can see and touch and feel. It's not about your surroundings. It's not about your relationship status or your major or your internship. It's not about how popular you are, if you came from money or you're super poor. Like, none of those things matter when it comes to the good life. When we define this life, this idea of what God has created for us, none of those things matter. It's not about the external. Okay, so if it's not about the external, then what is it about? Well, that leads us to chapter 2, right? In chapter 2, Paul not only does he say it's not about something external, he then gets very specific and he says, hey, by the way, the good life is not about you. It's not about me. It's not about you. The good life is not about us getting what we want. And so Paul kind of gets in our business a little bit in chapter 2, and he says, quit being selfish. Like, quit making everything about you. Quit entering into win-lose transactions with the people around you. Quit elevating yourself at the expense of other people in every single situation. Hello, the good life is not about you. Okay, so the good life is not about anything external. Good life is not about me. Okay, Paul, hello, what is it about? We get to chapter 3. And by now, we're like more than halfway through the book. So surely Paul's going to start being a little more specific about what the good life actually looks like. But it's in chapter 3 where he begins to tell us his story. He talks about his childhood and his family upbringing. He talks about how he grew up going to church and how he had all of these accomplishments, and he shows off his trophies, right? And so then we start to think, okay, maybe Paul is telling us that the good life is about what we accomplish, like what we create for ourselves. Maybe it's not about external and what other people can offer, but maybe it's about what we can create for ourselves. But Paul's like, nope. It's not about that either. We saw it last week in chapter 3, verse 7. It said, I once thought that these things, and these things is talking about the checklist, the accomplishments, the trophies, the laundry list of things that he had done, his background, his history, the family that he came from, his pedigree, all of the things that he had accomplished. He said, I once thought that these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Well, there goes that idea. So it's not about this list of accomplishments. It's not about anything external. It's not about me. So it begs the question one more time. We're running out of real estate. We are to the end of Philippians. Paul, what is the good life about. And so we're going to jump into chapter 4 in just a minute. But as we get into chapter 4, Paul, he's not really introducing a new theme. We've had a new theme each chapter, and he's been speaking to a specific area in our life. He's saying, hey, it's not about this. It's not about this. Hey, I know a lot of people think this is really important. I used to think this is important, but the good life is not about this. But as we get into chapter 4, Paul's he's pulling on the same thread. It's the same thing he's been saying through the entire letter to his friends. He goes all the way back to the beginning, where in chapter 1 he said, hey, the good life is not about your surroundings. It's not about any of those things. The good life is about the good work that Christ has already done. Okay, so we've been talking for the last several weeks, and I keep saying that. The good life is about this good work that Christ has done. But what does the good life actually look like? Well, hopefully we're going to discover a little bit of that here in chapter 4. And we're going to start in chapter 4, verses 10 and 11. And Paul says this. Dramatic pause to drink water. How I praise the Lord that you are concerned about me again. I know you have always been concerned for me, but you didn't have a chance to help me. Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. Now, Paul says that he has learned something. Now, we know a little something about learning, right? I mean, y'all are like professional learners. You pay a lot of money to learn stuff, right? So we know what it looks like to learn, and Paul says, hey, I've learned what it means to be content. That it doesn't matter what my situation is. It doesn't matter what my circumstances are. It doesn't matter what people say about me. It doesn't matter where I find myself. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter what's going on that day. Like I've just learned to be content no matter what. But learning is not always fun, is it? Like, it's not fun when we have to learn things the hard way, when we have to learn from our failure. One of my friends, his favorite thing to say is pain causes change, right? And it's true, pain causes change, but I would much rather learn without the pain of learning. But Paul says, hey, unfortunately, this is something that has to be learned. This is something you have to walk through. The good news is that even though it's not our default setting, contentment, being okay no matter what's going on, even when things are not okay, that's not our default setting. But Paul says it's learnable, right? Because he learned it, so that means that we can learn it. It's attainable for us. And then he continues in verse 12, and he says this, I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. Now, he says he has discovered the secret, but let's be real. I know this is true in my life. I'm assuming this is true in your life. We've all been in situations we weren't too fond of, right? But Paul starts saying, hey, I've learned the secret that in every situation, I'm okay. But this class, I don't really like it. This relationship, don't like it. This professor, definitely don't like it. This job, don't like it, right? We find ourselves in these moments where we're just like, I don't like what's going on around me. Like the semester's not shaping up how I thought it would. I don't like the circumstances. I mean, we've all been there at some point in our life. Maybe you're actually there right now. And so how do we discover this secret that Paul talks about of being content no matter what the situation? I saw this study when I was preparing for this message, and it was about stress in America. And it looked at like levels of happiness and stress levels in people's lives. And news alert, it said that the most stressed demographic in America today, you want to guess? You, right? You probably didn't need a study to tell you that. You probably had already figured that out. But it says that specifically people in their 20s, okay, are the most stressed people in America. So this study started like digging in. They wanted to figure out, okay, why are 20-somethings so stressed out? Is it because they're worried about the future? Like they don't know what comes next. They don't know what job they're going to have or what the future is going to look like in a few years. So they kept studying the same people as they transitioned out of college and they transitioned into a job and they started a career and they realized they're still really stressed. Okay, so it's not whether or not you know about your job or have a job. And so they kept looking at all these external factors, and this study went on for a long time. And it followed these people, and as they got into their 30s, they got less stressed, which was good, but they got more sad. I guess that's hopeful, right? It's like, hey, don't worry. Like, the stress will dissipate after you, like, transition out of the season of your life. It's going to succumb to the overwhelming weight of sadness that's coming, but it's okay, right? That's not that hopeful. I'm not sure I like this study, but they kept looking at all these external factors, trying to figure it out. Like, where does happiness come from? Why are people sad? Like, why are people stressed out? And they looked at people that were married, people that were single, people that had kids, people that didn't have kids, people that had an awesome job, people that were unemployed, people that had a lot of money, people that were broke, people that owned a home, people that rented a home. Like, they looked at all of these external factors, trying to figure out, what is it? Is there something, is there a formula to happiness, to a stress-free life? And you know what they discovered? Nope, there's not. You can remove all of these external things, all of these circumstances, all of the things that we pile on that we think are going to make us happy. You can take them all away or add them all in, and people are just sad. You're like, Chris, I was hoping to be a little more encouraged as I came to 242 tonight, and you're telling me people are just sad. Like, that doesn't make me all warm and fuzzy on the inside. Here's the deal. We're not happy people by default. You know that's true, right? Like, yes, we have happy moments, we have happy seasons, but by default, like, in our gut, we're not happy people. Like, that's not what we just naturally go back to, is just, I'm happy about everything. Life is always great. Doesn't matter what's happening to me. And it shows itself in our prayers, right? Because we're constantly praying for our circumstances to change. We're constantly asking God to intervene on our behalf or to bring something along or to take something away. It's like, man, if I could just change my relationship status, then I would be happy. If I could change my grade, then I would be happy. If I could get that internship, then I would be happy. If I could change my friends or maybe have some friends, then I would be happy. Like, and so our prayers constantly move in and out of these things that we want or we think we want or we have or we don't have, and we're convinced that that is what will bring us the good life. That's what will relieve our stress. That is what will bring us happiness. But it doesn't work like that. And so, how did Paul figure out to live in every situation, no matter whether he was hungry or well-fed, whatever came his way? How did he learn to live content regardless of his circumstances? We have talked about this for the last several weeks, that Paul was sitting in prison, right, when he's writing this. Like, this is a very uncomfortable place to be. This is not like the county jail. Okay, this is like a dungeon. He likely was in stocks like 24 hours a day. His body is contorted uncomfortably. He possibly was even chained to a guard like all the time. No privacy. It's wet. It's dark. It's gross. Like, this is his natural living environment right now. He is in a terrible place. And he said, hey, even here, like, I'm good. It's funny because if you go back to chapter 1, Paul actually starts his letter by saying, hey, just so you know, I know you're wanting an update on my living situation, and you heard that I'm in jail. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to release me or they're going to kill me. I'm not sure which one they're going to do. But he keeps writing this letter, and he's just happy. Like, kind of obnoxiously happy. Have you ever known one of those people? We're just like, wipe that smile off your face. Life is not that great, okay? Like, come on. That's Paul. And in fact, the word joy shows up in Philippians more than any other book in the Bible. And so he says, hey, I know I'm in jail. I know you're worried about me, but I'm good. I'm living the good life right here. this next verse is where he starts to tell us what the secret is. Now, it's a little cliche, okay? The verse that we're about to read, you may not have grown up in church. You probably have heard this verse. It's like John 3:16, Philippians 4:13. Okay, those are the two verses that most people have heard, and you may not know it's Philippians 4:13, but you probably have seen it on a t-shirt. You probably have seen it on a banner as you're crossing the finish line at a 5K. Like, right, this is the verse that like empowers us to do whatever it is that we can do. If you know it, help me out. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him or Christ who gives me strength, right? Philippians 4:13, we love it. It is our motto. It gets us amped and pumped up, right? It helps us finish that race. It helps us lift that extra 5 pounds. Like, we can do anything and everything we want to do because Christ gives us strength to do it. I don't really think ultimately that that's what Paul was talking about when he wrote this verse. It's great. It makes you feel good. And if it helps you in the gym, like, please wear the shirt and go. Like, you do your thing. You go to the gym. I'll go to the couch. But whatever it is, that if it pumps you up, that's great. But ultimately, Paul is not saying, hey, I can accomplish that thing. Right? It wasn't that he was putting something in front of him and saying that Christ gives me the strength to accomplish this thing. It's saying, hey, I can live the good life. I can have peace. I can be content. I am okay. It doesn't matter what thing is in front of me. I can get through anything through Christ who gives me strength. And Paul begins to reminisce. He's getting ready to wrap up his letter to his friends. He starts reminiscing, and he's saying, hey, I know that you're worried about me. I know that you're concerned for my well-being. I know that you're scared that I might not make it out of here alive, because I already told you that I might not make it out of here alive. And so if you're still reading this letter, you're probably a little concerned for me. But I want you to know that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I'm going through. It doesn't matter what they decide. It doesn't matter what people say about me. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter the outcome. I have found the secret of being content no matter what. I can get through this. I can do all things. I can make it to the other side. I can live the good life through him who gives me strength. It's not based on your geography. It's not based on your financial success. It's not about your relationship status. It's not about if you win the award or land the job. It's like, whether hungry or well-fed, whether rich or poor, whether popular or lonely, I got it. But it's not because of me. It's because of him. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. When we can grab a hold of that, that's the good life. I can make it through another day because he gives me strength. Like, I can survive this class because he gives me strength. I can make it through another disappointment because he gives me strength. I can walk through this family crisis because he gives me strength. I can survive this breakup because he gives me strength. It's not about accomplishing a thing. It's knowing we can survive anything because he gives us strength. And then all of a sudden, those things start to lose their power. All of a sudden, we're not looking to those things for the good life because we recognize the good life is right here. It's right now because Christ gives us the strength to walk through anything and get through anything. It's not about self-sufficiency, okay? Check this out. It's not about us mustering up the strength to do it on our own. It's not about us figuring out a solution. It's not about us figuring out how to do it, but we do this all the time, right? Like, life gets hard and we suck it up because we don't want people to think we're weak. We're like, I got this. I'm going to make it through it. Like, I will survive. I will persevere. But when we do that, we like shove our emotions inside. We're like, I got this. I'm going to handle this. Like, it goes terribly wrong. Like, it doesn't work when we try to do it on our own. In fact, a lot of times it makes us sick or it breaks us, it ruins us. Paul is in the middle of it, and he says, hey, it's not about anything that I can do. I can't muster the strength. I can't get myself out of here. And check out this verse, okay? It says, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. The operative word in this verse is not I. It's not about what I can accomplish. The operative word in this verse is him. He gives me the strength. He walks me through it. He provides. He sustains. He takes care of me. He watches out for me. He is my defender, like we sang about tonight. He is the one who will do it again, like we sang about tonight. It's not what I can do, and it's not even what I can do with him. It's what he does in my life. I said earlier it's about radical dependency. I have 2 girls, right? 1-year-old, 3-year-old. I don't know when the last time was you were around a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, but they can't make their own lunch. Did y'all know that? Like the 1-year-old, Campbell, she can't even open the fridge. I don't want them to go stand in the corner and starve. Dad, we got this. We'll figure it out, right? I can't quite reach the fridge, but we'll figure it out. No, of course I don't want that, right? If they're hungry, I want them to come ask me. If they want something to eat, hey, Dad, I want something to eat. It's about radical dependency on what someone else can do for us a lot of times in our situation. Like, I don't want them to be demanding, Dad, strawberries now, right? Whoa. Slow down. Dad, give me that yogurt. Hey, that's not how we ask, Landry. We use our manners, right? So I don't want them to be demanding, but I also don't want them to be demoralized. I don't want them to be like, clearly, Dad doesn't love us because there's not yogurt in my hand right now. Like if he loved me, there would be yogurt right here. Dad, why don't you love me? Like, I don't want them to be demanding, but I don't want them to be demoralized. I want them to ask, right? I want them to come to me and ask. And know, check this out, know that I have a father's heart, a heart that loves them, a heart that wants what's best for them, a heart that wants to protect them, a heart that wants to give them anything and everything they could ever possibly ask for. Even things that they don't know to ask for, even things that they don't think are best in the moment. I want what's best for them. And this, like, my daughters have begun to discover this, right? That I have a father's heart, that I want to be there for them, that I deeply care about them and love them with every fiber of my being, which is why Landry, our 3-year-old, she'll come up to me and she'll be like, Daddy, hold you. And I'm like, okay, no, you're not holding me. I'm holding you, but we'll worry about the semantics later, right? But she comes up to me and she wants me to hold her because she knows that I love her and she knows that I can't. Now, I know some of y'all are like, are you sure you can still do that? I know I'm getting old, okay? But I can still pick up my 3-year-old. I still got it, okay? Even with this dad bod, I still got it, okay? Yeah, that was for you, Robert. But here's the deal. She knows that I can, and she knows that I want to, and so she doesn't have a problem asking. Did you catch that? Not only does she know that I can, she genuinely believes that I want to. So she doesn't have a problem asking. Sometimes we know God can, but we're not convinced that he wants to, and so we don't ask. You want to know how to have the good life? You want to know how to have the strength to persevere? Ask for it. Ask for it. It's as simple as that. We've been waiting 4 weeks for this answer. Like, this is the good life. Ask for it. It's not about asking for that relationship. It's not about asking for that grade or that internship or that cute neighbor across the hall. It's not about asking for our external. It's not about asking for our circumstances. It's about asking for strength, for endurance, for perseverance, for peace, for hope, for joy. Ask for it. Everything around us is screaming that we need more, right? Like, we know God wants to interact with us, that he wants what's best for us, but we're not always confident that he will, that he cares, right? And then everything around us says that we need more or that we're not enough. And so it's like God plus something, right? That we need more of something, or we're not enough of something. We're not smart enough. We're not healthy enough. We're not thin enough. We're not rich enough. We're not popular enough. We need to add something to our look. We need to add friends to our circle. We need to add money to our bank account, right? That's what will push us over the edge. Is what will help us find the good life. But Paul says the exact opposite is true. He says, here is the secret. This is the secret. You ready? If you've been coming for 4 weeks, God plus nothing equals the good life. God plus nothing, Christ plus nothing equals the good life. Christ is enough. We say we believe this. We do. We sing that we believe this. We say that we believe it until our boyfriend or our girlfriend leaves us. We say that Christ is enough until we fail that class. We say that Christ is enough until we get passed over. We say that Christ is enough until our parents tell us they're getting divorced. We say that Christ is enough until we get cheated on. We say that Christ is enough until we feel lost. We say that Christ is enough until we feel lonely. But Paul says Christ is enough, period. When we're weak, he's strong. When we fall, he lifts us up. When we fail, he forgives us. When we're afraid, he is our courage. When we're lost, he's the way. When we're afraid, I already said that, he's our courage. When we stumble, he steadies us. When we hurt, he heals us. When we're broken, he mends us. When we're blind, he leads us. When we're hungry, he feeds us. And when we face loss, he provides for us. When we are hopeless, he is our defender. Christ plus nothing equals the good life. It's not about what you can muster. It's not about what's going on around you. It's not about your circumstances. It's not about what other people are saying about you, or they feel about you, or they think about you, or they're projecting on you. It's not about what you are saying about yourself, or what you feel about yourself, or what you're projecting on yourself. It's not even about what you can see. The good life is only about what Christ has done and what he offers to you. That's the good life. The good life is a life lived in relationship with Jesus. The good life is a life strengthened by Christ. We can do all things. We can survive all things. We can endure all things. We can make it through all things. We can find hope in all things. We can find joy in all things. We can find peace in all things. We can find purpose in all things through him who gives us strength. That is the good life. Live that life. Let's pray.